This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Sarah, we always start with a universal hello, and the reason hello, and the universality of it is so that we don't have any time limitation of whether it's the morning or the night. Here we are. And whenever you're hearing this message, it's coming to you with a freshness and a sense of hope and a sense of promise. With that in mind, my name is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the voice of Respectonomics, and my co-host is Sarah Benton. And we're both going to say to each other, hello.
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 Hello, everyone.
Okay. And the subject this afternoon, the subject now is the market in which we operate, which sounds a little bit sort of heavy-handed. I know you and I, Sarah, talked about could we shorten it up, and we actually said, well, no, the market in which we operate is the market in which we operate. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and this is, what was that, sorry?
I said meaning.
Here's the meaning. It is coming. Okay. And I don't think there's any Latin or Greek in this one.
Okay.
I can't remember. No, I don't think there is.
We'll decipher that by the time we get to the end, and we'll revisit that statement.
Yeah, and I'll put something in there just to give it.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, no, the whole principle about the market we operate in, I'm going to take, this is authentic, meaning in other words, it's sort of testimonial really. But about 40 or 50 years ago, I was in the wealth management business, and the stock markets were doing appallingly. That's what was happening.
Right.
And 2 or 3 threads came out of it. One of them was that old statement, and you've heard it, we've all heard this one, the market is in terrible shape. You've ever heard that one before?
I hear it quite often.
Okay. So we hear the market's in terrible shape. And this particular speaker made a fascinating insight. Now, he was a clinical behavioral psychologist.
Okay.
And he had his PhD from University of Michigan. And
nice.
This is a little bit of background because he found out in the insurance business, he found out something that he was a very successful insurance agent. He was at the $1 Million Round Table by the time he was 23. Which,
wow.
I mean, you have to translate this to 40 or 50 years ago. I mean, that was amazing. But he made 2 observations. One was, why did people plateau? And secondly, why did people burn out? That was his sort of background. And
right.
He wanted to understand it. So that's why he went and got his PhD. And anyway, from all of that, when he was talking to us, he made a statement that has been my compass. And that is, the market is only the place in which you operate. It's not good. It's not bad. Right. It's the place in which you operate. And that reveals a tremendous amount of value, because the first thing it does is, let's say we've got the proverbial bad market. You know the expression, the bad market?
Yeah.
I hate using it, but we'll use it because it's graphically, people know what I'm talking about.
Well, people will understand what you're...
Yeah, they know it. Yeah. But the first thing is, and you and I have talked about this, and this is very timely, because we are coming into strained economic conditions, are we not?
Correct.
There's all kinds of questions about supply chains and the list goes on. The one comment, the one observation, the one creed that has more mileage than any is this: we will not participate in the recession. We will not.
Yeah.
That's
and
it.
You've shared that with me before.
Yeah. And it's once you know it, you know it. So the first is, and it's not one of those idyllic statements and you say, well, I'm going to go to the beach in Samoa and I'm just going to say this. No, it is an absolute truth. There is no need to participate in what people call a recession or a bad market. Number one.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because the market, in fact, and this sounds like economic theorems and all this kind of stuff, but it actually reminds you of something. Supposing you were to build or had a housing compound in which there were 10 houses, and in that housing compound, each house cost $1 million. That was the investment in the house. We'll say that was what the money that was put into it. So you have 10 houses, $1 million each, makes $10 million.
Yes.
Now, here's an interesting economic sort of spill out. And it sounds almost contradictory. But supposing the value of housing triples. So those $1 million homes are now worth $3 million apiece.
Yeah.
The actual truth is that the capital invested in that project has not changed. It is still $10 million, 10 houses at $1 million apiece. And the significance of that is people talk about, oh, people are getting out of a market or into a market. Well, actually, in a sense, that's not true, because if somebody is selling one of those homes, someone else is buying it. And therein lies the transaction. The transaction does not change the original capital. Now, that may sound like so what music, and it sounds like, we're going to do an exercise in Bachelor of Commerce or something at Harvard. No, it's nothing to do with that. It's to make us understand and recognize that what you're looking at is 10 houses for which there is a natural appetite, a natural demand, and for which there's a natural reason for changes. The changes can be net immigration. The changes can be lifestyle. I mean, you'd know all this one, but it's things like people moving jobs. It's people wanting to upscale, downscale, rescale, all of those kinds of things. Not one of those issues is really a factor of market speculation or market volatility. They are influences, of course. And that would be naive to say they're not. But what is more important is when we recognize that the true value of that house was $1 million, it may be worth more now, but there's people who have different reasons and different objectives. Our job is to identify those needs and those objectives and to put people together so that there's a transaction that can take place to the mutual satisfaction of those two people, the buyer and the seller.
Correct.
And therein lies the value. Where it becomes almost disrespectful is, and we've all been in these roaring markets. As a wealth manager, I know what a rising stock market is like. The prices go up every day. And I hear myself saying to myself and to my clients, aren't I clever? I really am brilliant. I recommended something yesterday. It went up by $10. Why don't we try it again tomorrow? And we do it again tomorrow and it goes up by another $10. I mean, aren't we clever? Well, in actual fact, in that total calculation, you might say that Jeremy had nothing to do with it. Realistically, in terms of added value. Yeah, there was a little bit of identification of something or other, but when you've got, well, it was once said to me by a major institutional investor in Europe, and he said, when an issue is rightly priced, any monkey can sell it. And it sounds a little derogatory, but it does make the point that when we recognize that the market in which we operate is one that needs our respect, it needs our dignity, and we start, in fact, dignifying the buyer and the seller for the reasons we've talked about, whether it's immigration, upscaling, downscaling, you'd know all those reasons. I think most people know why they have a home, why they want a bigger, smaller home, what changes they would like to make. And all we're doing here is identifying the values that those people have and responding to them. When you respond to the value, that is when, in fact, you are considered to be adding value. And adding value is where, in fact, one would earn one's commissions and paychecks and so on. So that's what I really mean about looking at the market unto itself as an entity in which we operate. And I don't think it makes any difference whether you're talking real estate, whether you're talking securities, whether you're talking education. If you think of the teacher standing in front of the classroom, that is their market. And, we all tend to come out with what I call excuses. Oh, I didn't go after that client. I didn't put that thought forward. There's a lot of things that we do that don't actually respect the fact that that is our market in which we operate. And if we allow ourselves to be drawn up, down, sideways by literally the momentum in the market at the time, we're going to be losing great potential. And frankly, we are underplaying our own potential. our own potential. You've talked to me about real estate and explained some things that you see happening in the condominium market or something. And the one thing I find fascinating is the values that you ascribe to this individual has certain needs. This kitchen, dining room, whatever it is ideally suited for them.
Right.
That is recognized. I mean, it's got nothing to do with the state of the market.
No, and I think I like the terminology from the market we operate in, meaning it's our own market, because when you apply it to whether it's to yourself or to
Mm,
others, or like you say, whether it's work related,
mm,
it is all very individualistic, and it doesn't matter necessarily about what's going on around you, variables that we do not have control over. It's really focusing on the variables and having the understanding and the knowledge of what we can control
right.
and working within that.
Right. And I love that idea of what we can control, because what we do then is we start isolating the what you might call the things that really matter.
Right.
How often do you find, you get that horrible voice in the background that says, "Have you thought of something?" It's totally irrelevant, but that messes up your day. When we, in fact, focus on what we know are the core values, the ones that really matter, where we can be helpful and so on, again, those outside butterflies, they don't have any effect on us. They don't need to. I think it's also very applicable, this general formula. I shouldn't call it formulaic, but this paradigm, I think, is entirely appropriate for respectonomics. We're living in a world where we could talk about politics, we could talk about economics, and we can talk about good people and horrible people and all that, and it's great cocktail conversation. The truth of the matter is, the market within which we operate as a respectonomicician, I can't say it properly, but as a respectonomica, how's that? That's better. As somebody who's bought into this, our market is humanity.
Hmm.
And all we're doing is bringing people together in a manner where we can actually dignify one another, from which then come other values and other benefits and new prosperity, actually. So, sorry, you were going to say?
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Finish your thought.
I was going to say, no, what I'm saying is that I think that if you go and focus on the market in which we operate, what happens is you start identifying values that you might not, and you and I'll give you an example. When we started on respectonomics, we had certain ideas, but in talking about it and building up this whole concept of the human being, we've uncovered some truths that frankly, we didn't even know before.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a very exciting way to approach the market or the business one's in. You find these new values, you express them more clearly, you express them with confidence and conviction, because you're not being whisked away by the market of the day.
It's
And
I call it like an organic unraveling.
it is. It is
Right.
organic. Judith would love you saying that, because the truth of the matter is that when we allow the true organic growth to take place, that is when, in fact, you will get the bloom. That's when it will happen properly, and it will happen in its own time. One of the most amazing things about planting a seed and it comes out into a flower, it happens at the right time.
Right.
And there again, when we accommodate these values and look at them organically, they come to life at the right time. There's one other thing. Have you noticed, in whatever trade you might be in, it could be in, electric cars, it could be real estate, stocks, bonds, whatever it is. Have you noticed how when things are not looking very good and they're rather gloomy, we start criticizing the individual who's involved? Oh, of course, he or she didn't know what they were doing in the first place. Look at the mess they're in today. So it becomes an incredible indictment of our careers. And, I'm sure I have been at those social settings when you hear somebody saying, "Well, you're really in a mess these days, aren't you?" And it's incredibly, I mean, aside from being rude, it's very unnerving and very
Yes.
dispiriting. So when in fact taking that, almost like get rid of that and look at the values of what we do. So when the markets maybe, let's call, not doing well,
Right.
how reassuring it is both to ourselves, to our customers, to our family, to our bankers, to everybody we talk to, where we have a degree of influence. How lovely to be able to say, the greatest respect I have is for the people who are in my market.
Absolutely. And I
It
think that
works.
lost so often.
It is lost. And a lot of it is in the training, funnily enough. This is the strangest thing that your uncle, which is how you and I came together, he was absolutely beholden to the idea there will be no transaction until there's a relationship. That was his
Yes.
entire creed.
Yes.
And I think we will remind each other of Derek's greatest line of all time, which isn't really quite what we're talking about, but it's one to remind each other of over and again. And then when you meet somebody, you ask them, "How is your day going?"
Yeah.
Because that's the cornerstone to the respect you have for the individual. And if that is your market in which you're operating at that particular point, might be at that point, it might be a career, it doesn't matter. But what a lovely thing to say, "How is your day going?" What
Well,
about going into the CEO's office and saying, "How's your day going?"
I was just going to say it's an opportunity if you're listening,
Mhm.
active listening, to really understand
Yeah,
that individual may be navigating or
right.
dealing with,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Have true, genuine interest in the
Well, yeah.
response to the question that you're asking.
Yeah. And the answers as you know, the answers you get to that question are amazing. So I think we can use that. And whether you're talking the real estate business or whatever, it's a question that draws out what in fact is going on in that person's life and enables you then to be able to dignify them with anything between empathy, ideas, drawing alongside, whatever it may be that you do. The other thing I want to talk about is this. We talked about we shall not participate in the recession, which I think, and I know this is an international audience that we're talking to, but I will also add from a Canadian point of view, what a great logo for Canada. We shall not participate in the recession.
Right.
We won't. We're not going to do that.
Powerful.
It's very powerful. And the other part is this, though, that when you look at a business, so when you look at your market, I think you and I have already understood that, and I mean, I talk about it authentically from a respectonomics point of view of how much has been uncovered by talking about it, breathing into it, extrapolating, and so on. Not proud of that because, well, I am proud of it, but it's a pride that in fact comes from conversations and discussions exchanging with
Right.
the Dignity Trust. The
Yeah.
Dignity Trust is the group behind us. Everybody should have a Dignity Trust. Everybody should be talking about their own industry and talking about the things they're uncovering and the things they're enjoying. Because when you do that, here's the most exciting part of all. You can then answer one other question. The question that somebody says to you, possibly glumly, possibly, I don't know, with any accent, emotional accent you can think of. But the individual says to you, "Sarah, how's your business going?" To which you can truthfully say, "We are growing our business."
Yeah.
And there's nothing more exciting than to hear growth. I mean, that we love it when somebody says they're growing. I mean, what's the first thing you do? I mean, you look at your child and you say, the child is growing. It's really exciting. And we can now respond to customers, shareholders, whoever it might be, and say, we are growing our business. And we are. Because as you uncover the truths within your business and the values and the new ideas that come around, by definition, you are growing your business.
Absolutely.
It's the best garden of the lot.
Growing your perspective and your thought process as well.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. It's very expansionary.
Yeah.
So that's why this market in which we operate is a sort of stepping stone to recognizing incredible potential out there, which has one other little lovely, almost, it's got a little smile on it. Because as you recognize the potential in your market, you recognize the potential within yourself.
Absolutely.
And that is when we really prosper. I rest my case.
I was just going to say, I don't think there's anything else to say onto that. That was a
Mhm.
fabulous
Is this
summary.
the time? This is the time to be quiet.
It is.
Oh,
That was a lovely summation.
anyway, thanks so much, Sarah.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Okay. See you around. Okay.
I
Bye.
know.